Shalom. I'd like to start out by giving all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect of Israel. This is Thamayim in Atlanta, and I've got a Zero Hedge article pulled up. It says, War cycle turns up as economic cycle plunges. Charles Niener warns, very hard times are coming. And our apostles and elders have been warning us about this for decades at this point. And so this is nothing new, but it's nice to see that some of the regular folk are seeing this. And this article came out Monday, July 1st. It says, renowned geopolitical and financial cycle expert Charles Nenner has been warning of a huge war cycle and plunging financial economic cycle. And so he's saying war's about to begin and these economies are about to fall. And we know, particularly with the West or with American Babylonian dollars, that's definitely something that's on the horizon, considering that there's nothing backing the dollar at this point. It used to be oil and the petrodollar, but Saudi Arabia has turned away from that, and so there's literally no reason for the dollar to hold any value. And we also know that fiat currencies don't last that long. I think it's something like on the average of 35 to 40 years. And the dollar has been going on the petrodollar for around 50 years. So the dollar is in overtime, and we're watching that plummet. But we're also seeing a lot of different wars and rumors of wars. We're seeing Ukraine. You've got this thing that's they keep talking about with Taiwan and China and America. You've got what's going on in Kenya. You have, what else? There's various wars going on in South America, or little battles or skirmishes. And you also have what's going on in Gaza as well. And so we are seeing these wars and rumors of wars pick up, these skirmishes pick up. And eventually it's all going to combine, both the economic downturn and these wars. They're going to combine all the way into World War III and the destruction of the Gentile kingdoms, which we are currently in the time of the Gentiles, but that season is coming to an end. And so you're going to have destruction because the Gentiles have been wicked and they've all colluded against the Lord and against the Lord's people, held the Israelites down, the Israelites being the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as well as are scattered, because we're going to look like the other nations, considering we've been scattered into all the other nations. And they've been holding us down, passing all sorts of laws and inflicting violence and hatred on us. And the Lord is going to judge that. And he's going to gather them all into the valley of Yehoshaphat. And he's going to judge them over there near the Euphrates. They're going to go out sorely. Since the next big conflict is not going to be in Ukraine or Taiwan just yet, on Saturday, this headline, Iran threatens Israel with obliterating war if it attacks Lebanon. Nenner says all hell is about to break loose. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran, and Turkey are key players in an escalating war with Israel. Nenner, who lives on the border with Lebanon in northern Israel, interviewed with USAW just after a barrage of 100 rockets hit near his location. Nenner reports. And so you are seeing things escalate over there in Gaza as these other Western Asian countries are about to get involved with this. It says the children here have not gone to school for a year, and we are under rocket fire day and night. It is a very strange situation. what I don't understand is the Arab resistance, led by Iran, did not see what happened in Gaza. If this really goes, Lebanon is going to disappear from the map. And so you could tell this guy is he is a Israel supporter of the frauds over there. He says, "How do I know these things? I know these things because I work with several governments in the world. In the 1960s, there was a war, and half of Cyprus ended up Turkish, and half of Cyprus is Greek. Turkey never accepted that. Israel is using airfields in Cyprus. If this really gets going, Turkey is going to take over Cyprus because they support Hamas and Hezbollah. Turkey will invade Cyprus, and this will lead to a war between Greece and Turkey. Of course, Iran is going to be involved also. Big boats are heading to Israel, so America is going to be involved. Russia has its ideas too, because these different nations are seeing a chance to take over hegemony, to take over power away from the U.S., because the U.S. is looking pretty pathetic right now. It has pathetic leadership, its economy is failing, and people know that this place is built on lies. And so it's going to fall regardless. And these other nations are jostling to try to put themselves into position to be the next rulers, but they are completely wrong, because Yahweh Shai is going to return. He is going to take power over this earth. It says, "Why do the heathen rage?" And this is an example of the heathen raging. It says, "I don't think Americans have any clue what is going on there, and they have no background." That's because Americans are not the smartest bunch. It says, "They are only busy with trying to win the election, and it's going to lead to catastrophe. If there is if there is a war, Turkey is going to be involved. Cyprus is going to be involved. NATO is going to be involved, and it is going to be much more serious than people think." And Turkey, as he's mentioning, they're mentioned in Ezekiel 38. It speaks of Gomer. Gomer is Turkey, or modern day Turkey now, and they will be involved, and they will be joined under Russia, even though they are a NATO country. I think they were applying to BRICS recently. I'm not sure if they got in. But it says, Niner says we are already in the next big war cycle. Niner still thinks China is going to be a big problem, and says, "I would say if the world is busy with all this nonsense, then this is a time for China to take Taiwan over. The war cycle is extra up, so we have to be very careful. A lot of my wealthy clients are busy trying to get visas to Caribbean islands. I know many wealthy people busy trying to get visas and trying to get out of America. This is what is going on below the surface, and most small investors don't know what is going on." And those are probably the smartest of the bunch, because America will be nuked, and nobody will be surviving this except for the elect, who will be saved by Yahweh Shai in just the nick of time. It says they are worried about a nuke strike. Boom. And they should be worried about a nuke strike, because Babylon gets taken out by fire. Or terrorists blowing stuff up left and right because they came through the border. Yeah. And the Lord said he's going to fill this place with caterpillars. It says this is a very dangerous situation. They are not leaving right now, but they are preparing now. The war cycle is turned up, and it's going to be extra dangerous from the 3rd of July on. That's just tomorrow. Says Niner says his big clients are also leaving the cities and buying houses in rural locations. Niner told me this is a trend that has been going on for about 5 years, but it has picked up speed in the last year and a half. Niner says his economic cycles have turned straight down. And NYC, Niner points out, I have very wealthy clients that just got out of commercial real estate with a 67% loss. Also know the banks, they're holding all these bad loans. The banks have U.S. bonds coming to maturity that they have lost a fortune on. So the banks, especially the regional banks, are going to be in big trouble. And that's because of the time value of money, and Slovakia, and the value of the dollar has depreciated at a high rate. You can barely get anything with a dollar now compared to what you could have gotten in the 90s or in the 70s, and that's because it doesn't have anything backing it up. Should at least be on the gold standard, but it's not. And this is all just a case of the elite being too greedy. It says the regional banks are very weak. A lot is burning below the surface, which nobody tells you about. Neener says Neener still likes gold, but it's going to consolidate here. Inflation is getting ready to take off again, and Neener says layoffs are coming soon. Very hard times are coming. And yeah, you're watching the fall of an empire. You're watching the fall of the West and the fall of the other nations. Except the other nations have been getting ready for all this. They've been preparing their citizens for war and building up their war supplies, while America's just, doesn't have a care in the world. It's that unwalled city where the people are careless. And America's going to fall, and it's going to be a shameful, shameful fall. The Lord said, "Come now and sit in the dust, O Babylon." We're in that time. We're coming to the end of the American Empire, the end of the West, the end of the time of the Gentiles. And Yahushua is going to come and tear these suckers up. This is the book of Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 1. And this is where my mind went when I read that title for the first time. Speaking of the war cycle, or coming into the war cycle, and the economic downturn cycle, because there's a time for everything, and we're in the time of the Gentiles falling and of Babylon falling. It says, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die. And this doesn't just pertain to individuals being born and dying. It can pertain to empires and countries as well. 1492, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, that was the time of America's birth. And now we're watching in the 2020s the time of its death. And it's going out sad. It says a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. And I like to think of that on a nation level at this point, because this place was planted and the Lord's about to pluck it up. It says a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up. And we're in the time of these Gentile nations being broken down, and especially Western nations being broken down, because that's the abode of the Edomites, these so-called Caucasian people or self-proclaimed white people. Their time of rulership is drawing to an end. And so the Lord's breaking them down right now. And then after that, after the breakdown and the war, it'll be the time to build up the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of Yahushua, the kingdom of Israel. It says a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And you can see all these different cycles and the Lord's balance as well. It says a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. All cycles. These are cycles, or as it says up there, seasons. These are all different seasons, and the article mentions cycles, which, let's get that word, season. A period of the year with reference to weather or work, also proper time, suitable occasion. And to really tell proper time, you have to know the prophecies. And what stage and portion we are within the prophecies. That'll show you the proper time. Season date, right moment, appropriate time. A sowing, planting, to sow. From Latin, act of sowing, a time of sowing, especially spring, regarded as the chief sowing season. In old Provencal and Old French, this was extended to any one of the 4 natural periods of the year, especially as determined astronomically by solstices and equinoxes. Later, it was extended to the recurring annual wet and dry periods of the tropics. And yeah, almost I thought I might see cycle in here as well, but did not. But yeah, seasons going into times, because there's appropriate times for everything, just like Ecclesiastes 3 is going into. Going back to 7, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. And knowing when to speak and when to stay silent is a part of wisdom, which the Lord is teaching us. A time to love and a time to hate. And so you've got your war and peace, a time of war and a time of peace. And as that Neener guy said in the article, we're coming into a time of war, and we're coming into a time of economic downturn. And this is all prophetic, which would show that it is the appropriate time for the fall of Babylon and the fall of the Gentiles, because we're coming into the time of the return of Yahweh Shai, and the time for the kingdom of heaven to be built up. But first we have to go through this time of war, this time of hate, this time of breaking down, this time of killing, this time of death for these Gentile kingdoms. And so, Lord willing, that was edifying. I'd like to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect of Israel. Shalom.